What up, everybody? It's your main man, Evan Danger. Today, we're going to be discussing the future of stand-up comedy in Taiwan. Now, comedy in Taiwan is hotter than ever, with megastars like Brian Zung, Hello Hor, and Kylie Wang selling out shows across the globe. Last year, the Taipei International Comedy Festival held 84 events in 11 days, bringing in performers from Poland, Malaysia, Japan, and the United States of America. Also, Taiwan is one of the only countries in Asia with full freedom of speech, an invaluable asset for stand-up comedy. But the industry still faces many challenges. In a country of 23 million people, there are only 8 full-time comedy clubs, fewer than you'd find in downtown Manhattan. Of the 8, only 3 feature English language comedy. Furthermore, a declining birth rate and stagnant economy have called into question, does comedy in Taiwan even have a future? Today, we're sitting down with industry experts, veteran comedians, and living legends to uncover the truth. Let's go. Well, actually, first like and subscribe, and then let's go. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're good. Before we discuss the future, we must first look into the past. The first stand-up comedy club in Taiwan was established in 2007 by a fresh-faced young man named Social Chang. A decade later, Brian Zung and American comedian Sam Yarbs would begin their partnership, giving birth to the world-famous 2-3 Comedy Club. Over the years, clubs have opened up in cities like Taoyuan, Hsinchu, Kaohsiung, Tainan, and Taichung. Today, we're headed to where it all began, the one and only Comedy Plus. 去年的台北国际喜剧节表面上过得很顺利，大家都玩得非常开心。但是我想知道，举办那么大规模的活动会有什么样的挑战？然后你对今年的台北喜剧节有什么期望？
最大的问题就是最大的麻烦还是人力啦，人够不够使用啊？因为要执行那么多节目，然后要有大量的执行人员啊，然后工作人员，所以最大的挑战是在这边。以去年的状况就是不一定做得那么好，但是已经尽力把它做到，然后非常非常累。所以其实今年同样的挑战，第一个就是内部的执行人员、工作人员 staff 好够不够？第二个呢，就是要在这么短的10天以内要演这样子。去年是80几场，今年搞不好会更多，好，也许会到90甚至100场，有可能。好，那所以要这么短时间演这么多的场次，要有这么多的观众要持续进来支持，尤其今年的票房其实整体来讲有在下滑，所以能不能把那个热情跟能量，然后让观众还是觉得非常非常有趣，继续来支持，这是最大的问题。
你最近有带了一些喜剧演员去澳洲做一些巡演，我想知道你觉得台湾的脱口秀演员怎么可以提高他们的国际知名度，然后会面对什么样的挑战？
其实因为我们去国外演，好，就是除了台湾演，基本上还是要做华语市场，因为如果是要用英文去打英文市场，目前为止我觉得可行性不高，而且也不是我们本身真的要做，所以其实还是打华语市场。然后全世界现在的华语市场的主流其实还是中国人，要怎么切入国际的中国人的市场，然后面对那些文化隔阂，甚至政治的差异，让他们能接受，这个才是最大的问题。以我们几次到国外去的演出，中国的观众大概都不到1%，就不到10%，所以表示，但是问题是他们才是最主要的市场嘛？那怎么样能够吃到他们的市场，然后让他们接受我们的幽默，或是接受我们的方式，才是就是最大的挑战。那如果能做到这一点的话，那市场就真的很大。然后如果没有的话，我们目前可以做的市场还是国际的台湾人啊，那就市场相对小这样子。
总体来说，这个我们可以讨论很久，但是你现在对台湾脱口秀的未来有什么看法？
基本上，因为卡米蒂到现在为止已经18年了， 整整18年了。所以这个我们讲说火种吧，火种已经种下去了，而且已经燃烧了，已经18年，那势必它会一直发展下去，因为喜剧有它的必要性，就是大家已经认同了这个文化，然后也喜欢这个娱乐，所以它会持续有一定的支持度。可是它有没有办法一直很好的发展？我也不认为，它可能会上下，所以呢，要继续再等下一波的议题，下一波的创作，下一波的明星出现，然后让它有更多的高潮。不过以现在为止，基本盘已经有了，那我不看坏。那当然不能很阿 Q 的说哇一定会很好，也没办法。但是它会慢慢的成长，或者是甚至往下。但是拉10年来讲，它还是会往上这样子。
Cool. All right. One major issue that Chinese language comedians face when performing overseas is censorship, and I was actually surprised that Socio didn't bring this up. While Taiwan enjoys full freedom of speech, this is actually quite a rarity in Asia. While many Taiwanese comedians had previously performed in China on occasion, this has become virtually impossible in recent years due to the country's extreme censorship. In China, comedians must first submit their scripts and a video of them reading their scripts to the Cultural Bureau, where their material will be analyzed and scrutinized for anything that could potentially be seen as harmful to the country's society. The penalty for performing unapproved material on stage is severe. Just look at the case of Li Haoshi, aka House, who was arrested in 2023 after telling a joke about dogs. Some people misconstrued this joke as an insult to the People's Liberation Army. As a result, Xiaoguo Comedy, the largest and most successful comedy company at the time, was fined $2 million and eventually shuttered. In a recent conversation with the Shanghai-based comic, who will remain nameless, the Cultural Bureau is still blocking 50 to 75% of the material that comics are submitting. That's 50 to 75% of clean material. This is insane. Unfortunately, this censorship extends far beyond the borders of the People's Republic of China. Chinese-owned comedy clubs in America, Australia, and Europe are likely to impose some sort of censorship on their performers, fearing retribution from unhappy customers. From a business perspective, this is due to the fact that in order to continue developing the global Chinese language comedy scene, clubs will of course want to bring out Chinese megastars like He Guangzhi, Xu Zhisheng, and Yang Li. Any club with a reputation for allowing material that could be seen as anti-Chinese or anti-CCP will of course lose this opportunity. This is the reality of Chinese censorship, and it's happening in free countries. Malaysia, another hot market for Chinese language comedy, also faces strict censorship, particularly regarding religion and LGBT. In 2022, the world-famous Crack House Comedy Club was shuttered after a viral video of a girl criticizing Islam made its way around social media. However, that is not to say that doing Chinese language comedy abroad is impossible. Over recent months, we've seen numerous Taiwanese comedians, including Kylie Wang, Janice Wu, and Raye, perform in Australia and Malaysia, working in some cases with Chinese-owned clubs. In a recent chat with Raye on her performances in Australia, she mentioned that the Chinese-owned club she worked with simply asked her no political stuff, an understandable request given the current environment. On a recent episode of the Bilingual podcast, Kylie Wang detailed a show she did in Malaysia, where the club owners assured her that no authorities would be at the show that night, and she could essentially say whatever she wanted. In fact, she was encouraged to do political jokes about Taiwan and China. Curiously enough, Kylie Wang, one of the most famous and awesomest comedians in Taiwan, is no longer allowed to perform in Chinese at 2-3 Comedy Club. Is this a mistake? A brewing war between the clubs? Or something much, much worse? In the summer of 2024, 2-3 Comedy Club announced that going forward, only a select number of comedians, 23 to be exact, would be allowed to perform at the club's Chinese language open mics and showcases. This would be known as 2-3 Select, a plan created by Brian Zung to develop elite-level Taiwanese comedians. Now, when the news first broke, this was a major controversy. Many comics who were not selected, myself included, were totally blindsided, in some cases devastated by the prospect of not being able to perform at 2-3 anymore. Some veteran comedians who'd been performing since 2007 felt betrayed. On the flip side, comics who were selected were able to significantly increase their income, in some cases realizing their dreams of becoming full-time comedians. Also, all the extra stage time would allow them to develop at a much faster rate. For those selected, a dream. For those not, a nightmare. Now, without a doubt, comedy in Taiwan would not be nearly as big as it is without Brian Zung. But was this necessary? Next, I'm sitting down with one of the comedians I was most surprised wasn't selected, veteran jokester Ma Ke-tu-se.
所以我想知道，对你来说，在台湾发展你的脱口秀生涯，最大的挑战是什么？
最大的挑战就是我们脱口秀演员要身兼多职，就是你一个人要负责 control 所有的事情，你要同时是你自己的编剧，是你的导演，是你自己的演员，然后你还要经营你的社群，还要做行销，还要做卖票。然后有的时候人手不足的时候呢，你还要自己去这个售票口检票啊，所有的事情都要一个人做。23人选我觉得绝对有影响，因为对于新的演员来说，他们的表演的场地足足的变少，绝对是少一半。然后虽然说当时的利益是非常良善的，是希望有这个外溢效应嘛，大家可以去新的场地做演出，但是因为去新的场地之后呢，新的场地因为没有名气的演员来，所以会造成新的场地的观众票房会起不来，然后会陷入一个死亡螺旋，就是演员观众少，所以视效化的成果不好，视效化的成果不好，演员就会更不想要去，所以会造成那个场地就经营不起来，所以变成说，虽然说这半年到1年有很多新的场地出来，但是收的速度也很快。我3月的时候有一档个人专场是留声机，然后6月27会有私人账号，所以我今年开了2场专场。
票房怎么样？
票房很烂，救救我！
Unfortunately, 2-3 Select is not the only show that Mark and I aren't allowed to perform at. In the fall of last year, 2-3 Comedy launched Funny Women, the first ever all-female and non-binary comedy show in the country, meaning that men are not allowed to perform. In such an open and progressive country, how could such blatant discrimination be allowed? I headed over to 2-3 Comedy to confront the leader of this evil, man-hating terrorist organization.
Heyo, what up? I'm here with Kate Billington, the founder and host of Funny Women Taipei, one of the hottest shows in town. Now, Kate, I have a rather controversial opinion.
Okay, hit me.
Some people don't want to hear this, might get in trouble, but I think that, given the success of comedians like Joan Rivers, Amy Schumer, Ali Wong, Jiaoying Summers, Nikki Glaser, Elena Gabriel, Zarna Garg, Caitlin Palufo, Janice, Raye, Kylie, Long Long, Vicky, and Esther, that women have the same opportunity to succeed in comedy as men. But I've heard a lot of horror stories. I'm sure that you have a lot more bullshit to deal with, a much more difficult road up to the top. Tell us the challenges that women face in comedy, please.
I think it's definitely better than it used to be, like without a doubt. But I suppose the thing is, as a woman coming onto the scene, sometimes you see these great women like the ones you mentioned, but often women are afraid to just give it a go in case they kind of don't do very well. Like people, the first time they perform stand-up are probably going to be quite bad at it, right? And if a guy gets up on stage and performs badly, people will be like, well, that guy wasn't very good. But if a woman gets up on stage and performs badly, sometimes she comes to represent like her whole sex. So a woman does a bad set and some people will be like, well, women aren't funny. I knew women wouldn't be funny. And that happens, and there's also the fear that that's going to happen as well. So that stops some women from trying because they think they're not going to be good enough. And they're afraid of like letting down women, which I think probably doesn't happen as much to men. And there's also other barriers, like obviously things like sexual harassment is still a big issue, people feeling very uncomfortable in the green room. And even, it's very hard for male comedians, I think, to fix that, because even if a male comedian wants to be like super welcoming and say they see a woman like try out stand-up for the first time and they want to go up to her afterwards and say like, hey, great job, like they don't want that to be misconstrued as them hitting on her or like using the fact that they're comfortable in this space and she's not yet, like to take advantage. So they have to be careful about how they encourage women, which then means sometimes those female comics who are just starting out don't get the encouragement that they want, even though a lot of male comics would like to encourage them.
Yeah. Okay. Should we maybe be more bro-y when we encourage new women comedians? Like, yo, good job, dude. You know, not fist bump. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Them.
Yeah.
Don't hit them.
Okay.
don't hit the women. Top tip, okay? Don't hit them.
I'm so fucked.
I think you can be more neutral. Like a lot of, like some of the male hosts here, for example, when a woman comes up on stage, they'll introduce them like, the next comic is a woman. Or like, do you like diversity? Because we've got a woman coming up. And it's like, it would kind of be easier for us all if it was just neutral. Like, oh, this next comic is a beginner and I'm super excited to see her again. Or just something like what you would say about a guy.
Speaking of funny women.
Speaking of funny women, come and join us. Comedians. Good morning. Here she is.
What up?
Are you?
Look at my
funny?
bruise.
Whoa.
Whoa. She's funny but bruised. See, I told you, life is rough.
It won't
for
show up on the
comedian.
camera. Did you get punched for being too funny in the? What happened?
It was too wet at Hooters.
Oh God. That's a whole story. There. I'd like to hear more about that.
I slipped.
Oh, right.
Slippery when wet.
Yeah, so am I.
Funny Women Taipei, Friday, June 6th, 9:30 p.m. right here at 2-3 Comedy. With Mia.
And me.
And me, no. No discussion of comedy in Taiwan will be complete without talking to the man, Sam Yarbs. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks so much, dude.
So, everyone's familiar with the success story. You know, you got this world-famous club here, bringing out all these big international acts all the time. But what were some of the biggest obstacles in getting to this point?
I'll say two, because probably there's two different stages that I feel like were where we ran into the biggest obstacles. The first was like just when we were getting started. I remember we're talking like 12, 14 years ago, back in Kaohsiung when I was starting comedy. Before we had a place like 2-3, like a club, or before we had like a regular open mic, it was really challenging to get other performers to commit consistently to want to come out. You know, it's a different thing when people can already see a proof of concept. They can go to a show like Craft or like one of the headline shows and be like, oh, like, you know, all of a sudden that path to getting on stage makes a lot more sense. But when there's nothing going on, it's just guys like meeting it. Like we used to meet in the park to write jokes and stuff like that. It's much harder to get people to sign up for some of these, you know, to build it in those kind of early days. Now, obviously at this point, like Chinese comedy was already going in Taipei. Socio was doing things like that. But for English, there was people doing stuff in Taipei, but it wasn't like that consistent thing. So it was like, where can we find people who are willing to commit to putting the time to create a scene where it's not just something that one or two people are pursuing, but it's something that like anybody can come into an open mic, and maybe you're not even performing necessarily that night, but you might be inspired or want to pursue it. And then the other biggest step in terms of like, since we opened the club and even before that, you know, just as, you know, like live comedy and stuff has grown all around Asia, and wanting to be part of that was, how do we figure out, you know, like legally how to make all these things work for bringing in international performers? How do we, you know, protect the performers and set up ways, and just figure out, navigate the kind of the bureaucracy in Taiwan to the point where we're taking something that literally, again, started with guys just meeting in the park and telling jokes to each other, to a point where we're able to like get work permits and do things the correct, proper way to deal with the level of talent that, you know, our audiences deserve, like coming in to see.
Where do you see things going forward for English language comedy? What obstacles, hopefully not many more, do you see for the future? Just, yeah, your thoughts on things going forward.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, at the international level, like we're on the map. Like people, the biggest touring companies know about us, are bringing acts here, not just to 2-3, but to Taiwan. When you know, you're looking at artists who are announcing international tours and stuff like that. Taiwan's getting on those. Like people are coming here. So I think that you know, the sky's the limit for that continuing. There's a great market here for that kind of comedy, and so that's awesome. And I think for us here, like guys like you and me, and like in the English language scene who want to grow and develop our own things, I think that we're looking for like, okay, you know, who's going to be, like I look at someone like Jamie Wong, who started doing comedy here, who I think is on a trajectory. She's going to blow up, right? Like she is excellent, and you know, like that's someone we can be like, you know, Adam Hopkins, what he's doing in the UK right now, like, you know, his success translates from this stage in Taiwan to where he is right now. Like hopefully, like yourself, people who are putting in that work all the time, that we see our homegrown talent get recognized in other places like I think they deserve, because I think that we hold our comics here and our audience holds our comics here to a really high standard, and I think that we have a really, really strong roster, and I can't wait for other people to see that. So I want to see that continue to develop. Things I would love to see, I would love to have an international comedy festival, like a competition like the ones that Hong Kong used to do here in Taiwan. I'd love for Taiwan to be more of like a hub for regional English language comedy. I'd love to have more local performers coming over. I'd love to have more of our performers going abroad. That's what I'd love to see in the short term, in the next few years.
My conversations this week left me feeling cautiously optimistic. While there's a ton of potential for comedy in Taiwan, many challenges still remain for both English and Chinese comedians. But what about both? Over the past few months, we've seen an increasing number of Taiwanese comedians join the English language scene, essentially doubling their stage time and future prospects. We've already seen many Taiwanese comedians like Jason Chaney, Vicky Wang, and Esther Chen make it overseas in English, circumventing Chinese censorship. Is this the way forward? And what about that new Netflix show, Wang Lu Wajida? There's a Netflix show about comedy in Taiwan. Is this it? Is Taiwanese comedy about to explode? Is this our moment? Well, again, I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. One thing is for sure, we still have a metric ton of work to do. Thanks for watching. I'm Evan Danger. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or else.